meet the two crusaders who were in the film. Last week, we brought you three of the reporters portrayed in the movie, all part of the Spotlight team, which brought this scandal to light. But there were others, too, without whom those stories might not have been written. Joining me now are two of them. Mitchell Garabedian, an attorney who represented many survivors of the Catholic Church's crimes. Good to see you, Mitchell. Phil Saviano, a survivor himself, founder of the New England chapter of Survivors Network of Those Abused by Priests. This group he's still involved with. Phil, good to see you, too.
Good to see you, thank you.
You're one of the only people portrayed in the film who didn't cooperate with the actor playing him, Stanley Tucci. Why? Why didn't you deal with him?
I was just doing other things. I have cases where victims have been abused, sexually abused by priests in 13 countries around the world.
So it's priorities.
It's just priorities.
But he nailed you.
Oh, great job.
He got you exactly.
Great
You know, I haven't
job.
heard you review the film. Give me a two-line review of this thing.
It's very powerful. It's moving. It's touching. After I saw the film at the premiere, Bly Faust and Nicole Rockland came up to me and asked me if I liked it, and I told them I loved it, and they both started immediately crying. They said, that's what we wanted to hear. That's what we wanted to hear.
Now, Phil, you were portrayed as a relentless, understandably angry advocate. They got you too, did they not?
Yeah, they did get me. In fact, I don't remember myself being quite so angry, but my colleague Ann Webb reminded me the other night that, yeah, 12 years ago you were pretty angry.
And you did cooperate to the point where I read in one piece in the last week, you demanded, if that's the proper word, that the word grooming, which says a lot about what these priests did, be part of the movie. Is that accurate or not?
That is accurate. And the two script writers, the co-script writers, the director, asked me to take a look at the script and welcomed my input. And there were three different things that I wanted to have in there. The concept of grooming, the fact that many of the victims are female, it's not just all males.
Roughly a third, right?
Yeah, roughly a third. And then the other thing is the concept of how it's different when you're being assaulted by a priest than if it was a school teacher or your janitor or athletic coach.
Well, I think you succeeded on all those fronts.
There's that whole issue of spirituality.
When you're sitting in the Spotlight team office and you have a box of all this stuff in front of you with evidence of abuse by priests and evidence of a cover-up, and you're saying to them, I'm paraphrasing, I sent you this stuff years ago and you ignored it. Is that an accurate portrayal of what actually happened?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was 1998 where I had contacted a couple of the Globe reporters, very, very well-respected reporters, and had delivered them most of the same stuff that I brought back in there in 2001. And they weren't interested at the time.
Let's move to you. There is a scene with you and Mike Resendez. In fact, let's just play this, then I want to talk to you about it.
So, I pull out the 14 most damning docs and I attach them to my motion. And they prove everything. Everything. About the church, about the bishops, about law.
And it's all public. Because your motion to oppose Roger's motion is public.
Yeah, exactly. Now you're paying attention.
And so I could just walk into that courthouse right now and get those documents?
No, you cannot. Because the documents are not there.
But you just said they're public.
I know I did. But this is Boston. And the church does not want them to be found. So, they are not there.
Mitch, are you telling me that the Catholic Church removed legal documents from that courthouse?
Look, I'm not crazy. I'm not paranoid. I'm experienced. Check the docket. You'll see. They control everything.
Accurate?
Very accurate.
They literally had the documents removed. Obviously, no right to do so.
Not there.
You uncomfortable seeing yourselves on the screen, either of you? I mean that seriously, even though I think you both think the portrayal was good. Is that, what kind of feeling was that for you?
No, I was just concerned that they got it accurate, and it was.
And you both think they
accurate.
did?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Is this film? I mean, other than we were talking before, how good a film it was, and it's really hard when you're as close as you are, and even arm's length like me. Who knows? Is there a value in this film beyond telling a faithful story about unfaithful servants of the Catholic Church? For example, are more survivors going to have the courage and strength to come out as a result of this thing?
Well, I've noticed two things. It's empowered victims who've come out in the past. They're calling me now saying, this is great, this is history, we won't be forgotten. And new victims are calling me already.
You've had new survivors call you since the movie came out? Even though it's not in general release?
That's right, that's right. There's a spike there, without a doubt.
And what's your sense of what the impact of this thing is beyond a great 2-hour and some minute movie experience?
We're expecting to have another flood of survivors, a younger generation.
Because of the
so to
movie.
speak. Because of the movie, yeah. But the other thing that I'm hoping for is that I'm hoping it's going to put a lot more pressure on the Vatican to do a better job of addressing
Perfect
this.
segue. I want to read you a movie review from a guy who hasn't seen the movie yet, Cardinal O'Malley. But here's what he had to say. The media's investigative reporting on the abuse crisis instigated a call for the church to take responsibility for its failings and to reform itself, to deal with what was shameful and hidden, and to make the commitment to put the protection of children first ahead of other interests. What's your reaction to that, Phil Saviano?
Well, we did instigate a. Let me see this. No, I want to get this right.
Well, let me get your reaction while he's thinking
Instigated
about
the call. We did instigate the call. Did he answer it properly? I would say not as properly
Can
as
I have my
should
notes
been.
back? Thank you
Yes.
very much. What's your reaction to that?
Church is not going to change. They're not changing. I have a client who was abused in 1938. We're dealing with an entity that allowed innocent children to be sexually molested for decades upon decades upon decades. This is spin control. They're not changing. The way they're treating victims now is shameful.
How so?
They're looking at these records of victims, scrutinizing them, and then unfairly deciding a claim may not be credible.
When Terry Donald, who's a spokesperson for this archdiocese, also said, and here's a quote from him, we'll put this up, "We think we have the safest entity in the entire Commonwealth." Now, I'm not saying someone couldn't come forward with a claim from 30 years ago. That could happen. "We believe there's zero abuse going on now, none." What do you think about that one?
I think he's issuing a challenge, and I think that people are going to call him on it.
So you think it's not true?
Yeah.
So we're 12 years out. I want to get back to what you said before. You said things are not any better, or they're just not enough better.
They're worse.
What does that mean, worse,
They've
Mitchell?
gone back into hiding. The publicity's gone in terms of the way church operates now. Now they're telling victims, "Oh, we don't want to bother with this claim. It was an order priest. That's not a priest from the Archdiocese of Boston. We don't understand what happened here because the priest who was alive is saying it didn't happen. Therefore, we don't want to have a hearing." They've taken a step backwards. This entity is not going to change. The worth of this movie is the message it's sending to the public to watch your children when they were priests.
But do you think it has any potential, I don't want to be overly optimistic, to force the church to stop doing the things you say it continues to do?
How are you going to do it? They operate in secrecy. Canon law says these matters, when looked into, shall be kept secret.
Are you as concerned? I mean, bishopaccountability.org also talks about so many of the records have not been released. They keep good documents. Like several thousand have been out. There are at least several thousand more priests who are abused. Do you share Mitchell's pessimism about the current state of affairs?
I'm a little bit more optimistic, but the truth is there's still a lot of names that have not been released, names of abuses have not been released. And we're starting to hear from victims in other parts of the country. In fact, later this month, SNAP is having an international conference in Poland, where we're starting to hear from a lot of victims.
Speaking of international, even though there's allegedly zero tolerance here, we read in the Global Post, or at least a handful of priests from here in Europe who have proven abusers who've been transferred to South America. Does it bother you the cardinal law is still on the loose?
Yeah, it bothers me, but what are you going to do about it? At least at this point, he's retired. I don't think he's in a voting position within the Vatican
Does it bother you?
anymore.
Of course it does. We have serial enablers and serial pedophiles. They're criminals. They belong in jail.
If you could change one thing, unilateral power to change one thing tomorrow in the church's handling of this, what would you do?
Transparency. One word, transparency.
How about
that
you,
will
Phil?
end it all.
Same thing. Transparency. Let us know what's going on behind the scenes. And the other thing, they have some requirements within the United States, mandated reporting, zero tolerance.
Yeah.
They have nothing like that for the rest of the world. So if they're serious, they would make the effort to put a stop to this worldwide.
Let me tell you, you're both portrayed beautifully in the movie, but your role in real life has been 1,000 times more important.
Thank you very
Thanks for
much.
that.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mitchell Gabradian.
I apologize for grabbing your notes.
I'll grab yours.
I
next
wanted to
time.
make my point.
Good to see you, Phil.